Good morning and welcome. We're so glad you're joining us today. Today is Tuesday, July 21st, 2026, and we are here in the hearing room of the Administrative Services Building here in Fort Collins for the Board of County Commissioners. We are here for our Administrative Matters meeting. I call this meeting to order, and we always start our meetings with the Pledge of Allegiance. Would you please stand as you're able to join me?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all for joining us for the Pledge of Allegiance, and welcome again. We're really glad to have our members of our audience and folks online. I'm Larimer County Commissioner Jody Shad-McNally, Chair of the Board of County Commissioners. I am joined at the dais by Commissioner John Kafalis. Commissioner Stevens is traveling today, and she won't be joining us. We also have our amazing clerk and recorders who are clerk to the board today is Lindsay Tracy. Good morning, Lindsay. Thanks for being here. We have our amazing county manager, Lorenda Volker. Good morning, Lorenda. And we have Tom Clayton from the Public Affairs Office. Thank you, Tom, for being here. And then we have Sarah Martin, who is from our Commissioner's Office and does so many great and wonderful things for us. So we will have some special guests today. We have a lot of important things on our agenda. But first, we need to open up for public comment. Do we have anyone signed up, Sarah?
No one is signed up, Commissioner.
Oh, thank you. Is there anyone online?
No one's online.
And we received no comments?
Nope.
Okay. Well, we always welcome public comment. We'll go ahead and close public comment. Now we'll move on to approval of the minutes. Commissioner Kafalis, did you have any changes or concerns about the minutes?
I do not.
Would you please make the motion to approve the minutes?
Yes, I move to approve the minutes for the week of July 13th, 2026.
Thank you so much for that motion. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
That passes 2-0. All right, let's move on to our upcoming schedule. Sarah, would you please help us walk through that schedule? There's a lot happening with the Fair and Rodeo coming up.
This is the Commissioner schedule for July 27th through August 2nd, 2026. On Monday, July 27th, from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m., there will be a work session regarding the Housing Action Plan in the Commissioner's Conference Room on the second floor. From 1:30 p.m. to 2:30 p.m., there will be a work session with Leslie Ellis, Director of Community Planning, Infrastructure, and Resources in the Commissioner's Conference Room on the second floor. From 6:30 p.m. to 10 p.m., there will be land use items with the Development Review Team. It's a hybrid meeting. In person, it will be in the hearing room on the first floor or virtually via Zoom. On Tuesday, July 28th, from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m., there will be an Administrative Matters meeting in the hearing room on the first floor. From 1 p.m. to 2 p.m., Commissioner Kafalis will attend the Mission Reconnect Veteran and Service Member Coalition meeting in the Jewel Lake Conference Room on the fourth floor. From 1 p.m. to 2:30 p.m., Commissioner Shaddock-McNally may attend the Suicide Fatality Review Board meeting at the Larimer County Coroner's Office at 1600 Prospect Park Way in Fort Collins. From 1:30 p.m. to 3 p.m., there will be administrative direction to county management in the Sprague Lake Conference Room on the second floor. From 3:30 p.m. to 4:15 p.m., Commissioners Kafalis and Stevens will present the Fort Collins Area Chamber of Commerce Choosing Larimer County's Future at 225 South Meldrum Street in Fort Collins. From 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., Commissioner Kafalis will attend the Board of Adjustment meeting. It's in the hearing room on the first floor. On Wednesday, July 29th, from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m., there will be a budget retreat in the Arrowhead Lake Conference Room on the fourth floor. On Thursday, July 30th, from 9 a.m. to 10:30 a.m., Commissioner Shaddock-McNally may participate in the virtual Colorado Fire Commission Prescribed Fire Subcommittee meeting. From 11 a.m. to 5 p.m., Commissioners Stevens and Shaddock-McNally may attend the Counties and Commissioners Acting Together Summer Retreat. It's a hybrid meeting. In person, it's at 613 Oak Street in Steamboat Springs or virtually via Zoom. From 12 p.m. to 1 p.m., Commissioners may attend the Ranch Event Lawn Preview at 5280 Arena Circle in Loveland. From 6:30 p.m. to 9 p.m., Commissioners Kafalis and Shaddock-McNally may attend the Larimer County Fair and Rodeo Queens Barbecue at Castarena's Equine Center at 5280 Arena Circle. On Friday, July 31st, from 8 a.m. to 1:30 p.m., Commissioners Stevens and Shaddock-McNally may attend the Counties and Commissioners Acting Together Summer Retreat. It's a hybrid meeting. In person, it will be at 613 Oak Street in Steamboat Springs or virtually via Zoom. From 2 p.m. to 4 p.m., commissioners will attend the Big Thompson 1976 Flood Anniversary event at the Pulliam Community Building at 545 Cleveland Avenue in Loveland. From 4:30 p.m. to 6 p.m., commissioners will attend the Ranch Event Lawn Ribbon Cutting Ceremony at 5280 Arena Circle in Loveland. On Saturday, August 1st, from 9:45 a.m. to 1 p.m., Commissioner Shattuck McNally may attend the NOCO Fireshed Post-Fire Hike at Dowdy Lake at Red Feather Lakes. On Sunday, August 2nd, from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m., commissioners will attend the Larimer County Fair and Rodeo Pancake Breakfast at 5280 Arena Circle in Loveland. And from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m., commissioners will attend the Professional Rodeo Cowboys Association Rodeo at Blue Arena at 5280 Arena Circle in Loveland.
Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate all that. Commissioner Kafas, do you have any changes or additions, sir?
I just have one addition that I think should be reflected in the calendar on a regular basis. On Friday, July 31st, from 1 to 2:50 p.m., I may attend, because it overlaps with the Big Thompson Floods commemorative event, but I may attend what's called the House Bill 1429 Implementation Working Group meeting. It's a statewide working group that is looking to develop recommendations. So that's every 2 weeks, and it's in the calendar, so that cadence should be reflected. And I'll have to work out the details, but I may attend, or at least by Zoom for part of the meeting, and have backup from our Human Services Director. Sorry, that was a bit of a long-winded answer, but the takeaway, you get what the takeaway is, right? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Sarah. I just wanted to reflect on July 29th, after our budget retreat, that I probably will be attending the town hall in Loveland and possibly speaking for COCO, the Front Range Passenger Rail event. And I believe that will be at the City of Loveland building, which I still have to finalize that, but if you could put that in. And then on Thursday, the 30th, I know it's in the calendar, but I still might attend the Joint Fire Commission Prescribed Fire Recommendations Subcommittee meeting, and that's from 9 to 10:30. I'm trying to, since I missed last month, I want to make sure I get that on. So I just wanted to put that on there. So, and I think that's all I had for the calendar. Thank you. Okay, moving on. We now will look at the consent agenda. I'm going to read through a high level for the consent agenda. If you have more interest in details, numbers, lots of information there, you can go to our Board of County Commissioners website, where our meeting minutes, our agendas, details of all of this sort are there. And you can even watch meetings and videos, but there's a lot of information on our Board of County Commissioners website. So I will now read through this at a high level, but our consent agenda usually consists of items of no perceived controversy and routine administrative actions such as abatements, agreements, deeds, final plats, liquor licenses, resolutions, and other matters previously reviewed by the Board of County Commissioners. Staff recommends approval of the consent agenda, and a commissioner may request an item be pulled off the agenda and considered separately. Items that pulled from the agenda will be considered after the board takes action on the remainder of the consent agenda. And I will now read through this fairly average length consent agenda, but we're going to first start for the consent agenda for Tuesday, July 21st, 2026 with some agreements. The first is Amendment 1 to the contract between the Larimer County Department of Human Services and Early Childhood Council of Larimer County, doing business as Northern Colorado Kids Thrive. And this is a request to amend the contract with the Early Childhood Council of Larimer County, doing business as Northern Colorado Kids Thrive, who is a contractor with the county to increase capacity and services related to early childhood families in Larimer County pursuant to the voter-approved ballot measure. And this will amend Exhibit B1. There is no cost amendment. So this next is a professional services agreement P26-10, a geotechnical consulting and material testing services. And that's between our engineering department and a vendor who will perform geotechnical consulting and materials testing for various Larimer County projects. The next is an agreement to the purchase requisition for Form Perkins and Will Expo. And this is at between the Ranch and Larimer County Events Complex and Larimer County. And this is a design services work order with Perkins and Will for schematic designs plans through the final design of the Exposition Center. And now we have an agreement for purchase requisition for Form Perkins and Will Event Plaza. And this is also the same between the Rent Complex and the same organization, but this will be design work for the final design of the Events Plaza at the Ranch Complex. And then the last is a document recommending reappointments to the Natural Resources Board of Mr. Wirth and Mrs. Hayhow, and we appreciate them doing a second term, and there will be full-term appointments to the Natural Resources Advisory. And then we have 2 liquor licenses. One is a special event and liquor license, 6% for the American Legion George Beach Post number 4. And this is for a Realities Ride and Rally in Fort Collins. And then we have a special event, 6% Realities for Children for the 24th Realities Ride and Rally in Masonville. And those are both related, I believe. And then we have some miscellaneous items. One is the monitoring and permit deviation report, X2, an annual compliance certification report, and this is a semi-annual reports and annual certifications that are required by the Title 5 air emissions permits for the Larimer County landfill. And then we have documents for the treasurer's 6-month report submitted by our treasurer and public trustee, Irene Josie. And this is just furnishes our semi-annual financial reports of the Board of County Commissioners according to Colorado Revised Statute 30-25-111, Section 2. And it's just for us to publish this, and it has been published in the semi-annual way. And you can go online to see more of those details. Second is a document, Quarter 2, 2026, a public trustee report, again submitted by our treasurer and public trustee, Irene Josie. And this is Quarter 1, 2026 summary of activity between April 2026 or actually should be Quarter 2 and June 30th, 2026. And then we have a stipulation for DLD. These are tax stipulations to year of 2025 tax year, and we have 3 of those. I won't go into those details. Again, you can go online. And then we have 3 resolutions. One is a resolution calling for an election regarding the Larimer County Collins Center Public Improvement District number 82. We had a hearing on this on July 6, 2026. And then we have a resolution calling for an election regarding the Larimer County Stanley Heights Public Improvement District number 81. And this hearing also was on July 6, 2026. And then we have a resolution calling for, again, election regarding the Larimer County Public Improvement District Terry Point Estates number 85. And that also was a meeting held on July 6, 2026, calling where the commissioners approved a resolution like the ones above, calling for a mail election ballot for those districts. That is all that's on our consent agenda. Commissioner Kapalas, do you have any items you wish to pull?
I do not.
I would then please ask for you to make the motion to approve the consent agenda for July 1st, 2026.
Yes, so moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That passes 2-0. Thank you. I don't believe we have any guests today. We'll have guests next week. We'll have the Larimer County Queen, so we look forward to having her. And I also believe we might have the the clerk and recorder is coming to give us a report from the primary election. So those will be our guests next week. We do have one discussion item, which is a really important one, and this is looking at our resolution declaring restrictions on fire and combustible devices in Larimer County. And this is submitted by our sheriff's office. That's what's I'm reading off what's the label there, Sheriff Fan, and we're going to invite Sheriff Fan to come up and do a presentation as we discuss. We already have some fire restrictions in place, and he's going to give us some updates, and we're going to discuss next steps. So, Sheriff, welcome. Thank you so much for being here in person today. Thank you.
Sarah has the power.
Yes,
Thank you,
she
Madam
does.
Chair, Commissioner Cafalas, John Fan, Larimer County Sheriff. Today we are talking about the continuation of the fire restrictions. In just a minute. There we go. Okay. So, short version of this is like we've done before. I'm going to give you a little bit of the science. This is kind of the outline of what we're going to talk about. In the short version, what we're asking for is basically a continuation of what we have currently. No changes, no reductions, no increases, but just to maintain what we currently have through Tuesday, September 8th at 11:59 p.m., which should be an admin matters day. But if not, we can fix that. Okay, so here's the science. You've seen some of this before. So when we first came back to you in the middle of May, we talked about the moisture from the rain gauges, National Weather Service at Colorado State University. For October to April, we had 2.31 inches over that whole 7-month period. May was a blessing, right? We had 3.68 inches in May. Unfortunately, June, July has continued that pattern. Now, while July is not over, we've only had 0.4 of an inch at CSU from June 1 through this date on July. Our average, again, now for the entire month of July, and we could maybe make that up in the next 10 days. Who knows? It doesn't look likely, but perhaps, is 2 3/4 inches typically. I looked at our higher elevations as well. So I looked at Estes Park to see what that looks like, just to make sure that there wasn't a huge disparity between what we are seeing here in the plains as opposed to what they're seeing at elevation. And unfortunately, that standard continues. So again, your far left rain gauge is what the Estes Valley received from October to April. So just over 3 3/4 inches for that time. May, 4 inches. So again, duplicating what we saw here in the valley. June and July has continued to be dry, just under 1/2 inch, where their average is about 2.5 inches. So it's very, very dry, even at elevation here in the county. You've seen this before, and I want to, for each, right, we talked about in the past that we have separated Larimer County into 3 elevation zones based upon the National Weather Service, starting at 6,000 feet and below, 6 to 9,000, and 9,000 feet and above. You've seen this before, and I'm going to give this to you for context, because what follows each one of these areas is another slide, and it looks very, very red. The red could be deceiving, and I'll explain why. Well, let me just show you what. So the same data that is on this slide. So let me explain what this means. I just took the last time I visited with you on May 25th, what the values for each of these components were. And again, I'm happy to explain what ERC is, SC is, those kinds of things as well. But just to make it simpler, if it has moved in a negative direction as far as we are concerned for fires, then I highlighted it in red. If it's moved in a positive direction, that component, then it's green. So as you see, there's a lot of red. I'm going to go backwards a slide. But I also want to give you a little bit of context, because even though the KBDI, which is the drought index that we use on this slide, is red because it's gotten more dry, it's gotten drier, it's still overall considered green for this East Divide area. So I just kind of wanted to put everything in the context for you. Again, though, as we go through when we talk about fuel moistures, I want to remind you from our previous discussions, you go buy a 2x4 right now at Home Depot or Lowe's. Your 2x4 moisture is about 15 to 17% moisture content, and pretty much everything that you are going to see, no matter what elevation we're at, is lower than a 2x4 moisture content in our county. Okay. So this is the foothills elevation. What you saw before was the East Divide, so 9,000 feet and above. This is the 6 to 9,000 feet where our Estes Valley communities, Red Feather Lakes, Rustic, those areas are located. Again, things are, as we fall in elevation, you're going to see things become more severe. So a lot of oranges. This one, everything compared to what we were 6 weeks ago has, or longer, has gotten drier, moved in a negative direction for all of us. And then finally, the plains, where we currently sit, Fort Collins, Loveland, Wellington, Berthoud areas, is where these typically are. Again, things have gotten worse, as you'll see here in a minute, but everything's not necessarily red on the big dashboard, but everything has moved in a negative direction over the last 2 months since we last spoke. Okay? So, this is one of the reasons why I'm asking for continuation of our current restrictions. Here's our drought indexes. And again, if you remember from when we first started having the discussion, unfortunately, way back in March and April when we had all the red flag days and it was really, really dry, all of Larimer County was that dark amber or that dark brownish red color. In May, the most significant area of drought in our state moved out and moved towards the central mountain areas. As you can see, it's starting to come back in from the east, however. So we are not in the most significant, but we are 40% or greater below what our moisture fuels are. And as you can see, these were just snippets I took from the National Weather Service, is that this is the 6th driest January to June on record since we started making records in 1895. So we're about, this is for the state, we're about 3 1/3 inches of moisture down for the entire state. Here's our forecast. So this is what the 30-day forecast looks like. We are looking, 30-day forecast. This is looking to stay, I apologize, this is the wrong slide. Let me give you this one. I didn't take that one out. So this is the next 2 weeks. So we're going to stay drier, but we are looking, you may see it on your local news channels, right? They keep talking about the monsoons coming in, and we are seeing more moisture. We had 20 people out from the emergency services out in 3 different fires across the state. And they are getting some rain out in the western slope a little bit, which has helped in those areas. But right now, we're not seeing a whole lot of that, although there is rain, and we'll talk about that predicted in our next couple of weeks from our local channels. But we are expected to stay in the next 2 weeks, higher average temperatures, maybe a little bit more moisture. We're not really sure. In the month, again, we get equal chances of, are we higher than normal or lower than normal? So we're taking you through the end of August is what the prediction is. However, we are expected to now see, have a higher chance of having increased moisture. So I've gone a ways out. I've gone to September 8th on the recommendation. And the reason I've done that, well, and here's your major fire spread. As you can see, it starts retracting. So in July, you pretty much have the front range part of Larimer County. You lose that component in August. This is from the National Fire Protection, National Interagency Fire Center. Sorry, too many initials in law enforcement. So we are seeing the chance of significant wildfire decrease as time goes on, which is a good thing, which is typical in those kinds of years. However, we are so far behind in our moisture levels, as you had seen in the previous things, that even with this looking like this is our next 7 days, taken at last night about 5 o'clock from one of our local news channels, you do see moisture, and you see temperatures going back towards normal from the highs that we have been, but we are so far behind that I wanted to go all the way out to September 8th just to give, if we get those moistures, the plants and the fuels the opportunity to absorb them, because it takes a while. So this is why I'm asking for a continuation of our current restrictions, not going up or not going down, through September 8th at 11:59 p.m. Our current ones, just for your knowledge, expire today at 11:59 p.m. Okay. That is the end, unless you have questions.
Thank you, Sheriff. And just curious, this is a picture from?
That's our paramedic, Jeffrey Bassamanowicz. He is out on the Ferris fire currently, and this is one of I always tell him, send us pictures. So this is him at that fire. The original picture from the first slide is we had Joe Owen was an operations division chief trainee down at the Pueblo fire.
Aspen Fire. Aspen
Acre fires. So
this is from there. Okay.
So this is from Ferris. Yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
I have some questions, but we'll start with Commissioner Gonzalez first. Thanks for the presentation. Commissioner Gonzalez.
Thank you. Thanks, Sheriff. I have one observation and a couple of questions, sir.
Sure.
My observation is that just last night talking with neighbors, and the comment was that this was the quietest 4th of July holiday, suggesting that at least in the city of Fort Collins, people were doing their best to abide by the restrictions on fireworks. So I offer that observation. I don't know if we observed that in the unincorporated parts of the county. And with that in mind, Sheriff, my questions are, one is, how is enforcement going? Because that's always tricky. Are we, related to that, are we seeing incidences where folks are not following the restrictions, which I believe include no, even in organized fire pits in campgrounds, fires are not allowed, and maybe you could speak to that a little bit. But how's enforcement going overall? Secondly, how does your recommendation to continue the fire restrictions till September 8th align with what the State Forest Service is doing, and certainly our friends in the Roosevelt National Forest, the U.S. Forest Service? I'll pause there. There are two questions embedded in there.
No, that's fantastic. I appreciate it. So we have had, and we continue to have starts, right? Fire. I mean, even over the last week, we've had fires start. We've been able to get on them very, very quickly. One of the, I would say scariest, because we didn't get to be very big, but we've talked before about the area above Pole Hill between Estes Park and Larimer County. We actually had a fire start up at the top of Pole Hill from a lightning strike. We were able to get onto that with Estes Valley Fire Protection District and keep it at about 20 by 20 foot. So that's a good thing, right? But we're seeing a lot. We're still seeing a lot of starts. People are very, very quick on calling and saying that they see smoke. Sometimes they're actually just clouds in the valleys and the mountains, but I'm glad that they're doing that. I'm working with the county attorney's office, Attorney Rasu. We've noticed anytime you do something like this, you notice where, well, that wasn't the intent was not to allow this, but when you read the language that's in the authorizing ordinance from back in 2019, it actually, there's gaps within there. So we've not seen a lot of welding. The one welding start we saw, there was this conversation about the language within the governing ordinance about whether it was in an undeveloped, because there was the word undeveloped Larimer County. Well, where it started, there's fire hydrants, there's paved roads, there's curb and gutter. So the argument became, well, is that undeveloped Larimer County, or is that now because it's a paved roadway, it's developed Larimer County? So we're working to clean up some of those things. We've seen, I shouldn't say a lot, half dozen fire starts from not welders, but from grinders. People working on fence lines and grinding, and it's throwing sparks. So we need to come up with a language that is a little more universal, that covers a lot of different things, and the county attorney's office is very good about that. In regards to how we are aligning with our neighbors, currently everybody is very similar to what we have. The U.S. Forest Service about 2 weeks ago went into what they call a stage 2, which matches all of our restrictions, where the only thing that you can have is a propane powered, something you can turn on or off, right? And as far as we are not receiving calls to the fire or to our Larimer County campgrounds about fires and fire rings. We have not received calls, to my knowledge, about fires in Forest Service campgrounds either. So I assume that people are, for the most part, being adherent to the restrictions. As we drove through, my wife and I, Hermit Park the other day, after going to the amazing pancake breakfast at Glenhaven, we saw signs posted everywhere about fire restrictions within Hermit Park. So,
Great. Thank you. Sheriff, may I ask one more question, please?
Certainly, Commissioner, I appreciate you mentioned the pancake breakfast. It's good to see you.
So that's a yes, I believe.
I said certainly, sir.
So in previous discussions, we have talked about, especially in light of all these, seems like every other day we're getting an alert on our our Watch Duty app about a quote vegetation fire. I think these smaller ones that we're seeing. And at previous discussions, we've talked about mobile home parks, and that many of them, for example, Poudre Valley Mobile Home Park, only have one ingress and egress. And I was going to follow up with our county manager, but our Office of Emergency Management folks, I think working with your folks, we were going to try to do some more education and outreach to people who live in these mobile home parks so they know about emergency preparedness and develop some strategies about how to do evacuation should there be a need for evacuation, especially when there's only one way in and one way out. With all of that in mind, Sheriff, are you aware, have we made any progress on that effort? Thank you.
No, so good question. And the communication is ongoing. I mean, we are not going to fix the one way in, one way out, right? I mean, that's at the sheriff's office. Just like when we evacuated Estes Park during the East Troublesome fire, we couldn't create more roads other than 36, 7, and 34. But we dealt with what we did. Now what we had. Now the nice thing is speaking of Fort Collins in particular, the areas that you brought up, we and Lori Hodges being OEM is part of that. We have engaged with OEM here in Fort Collins. So Dennis Day and his staff, who is the OEM manager for the city of Fort Collins, talking about what does that look like. There's Samantha, and her last name escapes me, but she's a huge advocate for the mobile home communities within northern Colorado. Worked with her about what does that look like for those communities, and how do we notify people, get them out. I mean, all the things. I mean, if you're gonna have a disaster anywhere in the nation, I think Larimer County is better prepared because even to handle it than anybody else. I mean, Kimberly Cope being able to put out LEDA alerts in 138 different languages if they need to. I mean, that's amazing things. We are engaging with Chief Svoboda and through his special events teams led by Lieutenant Kevin Cronin, and talking under Sheriff Schulhammer just went over and did a training for about 60 of their officers and staff about what evacuations look like from the law enforcement standpoint. And so while we cannot create the roadways that would give us more than one ingress or egress point, we are collaborating with our partners in those places where we need to and having the conversations with the community about, think about what you want to take if we come to your door and say you have 20 minutes, right? The family members, the pets, your important documents, the wedding albums, those kinds of things, so you're ready to go. And then working with our local first response partners about, here's what you need to do if you're going to go contraflow on a roadway and you're going to make the in road the out road as well.
Thank you. And seems like there's been good progress.
Yes.
I wonder, are you aware, have any workshops or sessions occurred where OEM people or whoever needs to be there have actually met with community members in these parks, to talk about preparedness and even with, I should know this, of course, but getting the LEDA alerts, does one have to subscribe to that or?
So it depends on how you, yes and no is the answer to that. So it depends on, you can unilaterally sign up going to nocoalert.org, and you can put your address in, your home address, your work address, your children's address, and you can say, I want to be notified for these kinds of things only. And so at that point, those things will be pushed out to you. If your polygon, and we've talked about polygons here before, is evacuated, those will be pushed out to the registered contacts in that community. I always encourage, though, people to be proactive and make that connection to make sure you're not missing something. And of course, worst case scenario where we need to evacuate an entire community, such as what happened with East Troublesome and Estes Park, we'll do the iPause, which actually tells a cell tower to every cell phone that is touching that cell tower to send out an alert like you would get with an Amber Alert.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, there's lots of work to be done. As I shared last week, talking with camp hosts for U.S. Forest Service campgrounds and some of the other folks, I do know it seems some of those campgrounds fields are not always following restrictions, and they're having to be pretty busy trying, folks to, especially visitors. So that's been hard. And yes, it was great to see the pancake breakfast. I think they served over I know they broke a record, served a way over 700 breakfasts. And we were having those conversations and talking about some of the volunteer work they're doing once a month up there. So it's costing them about 20,000, 16 is 20,000 a month. I don't know where they're getting money, but it's obviously a labor of passion, purpose, and love for that community, which is fantastic. There was so many people, but yeah, we were talking about the fire restrictions, and there's a sign. I'm assuming that's your sign on the Highway 34 on the way up, talking about fire restrictions.
Is that our sign?
Is that a state sign or?
I have no idea whose sign
Yeah,
that
I'm
is.
just curious
I
whose
saw it
sign
too.
that is. That our sign? No, I'm just curious because that's
Not that I'm aware of anyway.
Yeah,
it could be
driving-
ours, but
Some of the fire districts also put them up in support of the restrictions,
Yeah.
so it's difficult to tell sometimes.
Yeah, it's there. It's been there for a while, and I appreciate that on Highway 34 as you're leaving Loveland. So I do think where people are pretty, and the yellow signs up for the U.S. Forest Service and things. So I do think locally we're all being maybe a little more careful, but 4th of July in unincorporated parts of Larimer County, not in Fort Collins, was having the usual take off the ground massive fireworks. I have plenty of videos for you if you'd like to watch, but it's the usual areas of just fireworks taking off, and same time as Loveland's, pretty much as high as Loveland's, and it's very close. So I'm usually pretty on alert most of that evening, but I want to say that I still think it might be in some folks feeling like people are listening, but it only takes one of those other ones that we have been talking about to kind of start something. These are really important restrictions, and I really appreciate you showing those how dry it's been in June and July, and then also showing those fuel loads, because I agree with you. We may not catch up for the rest of the summer. We were really behind from the winter, and May was a blessing, but we're back on that track. And I'm hoping the monsoons are bringing some wonderful weather, but that also means they might bring some winds, and so that could also continue to dry things out. Is that a fair assumption?
That's absolutely a fair assumption.
Can we go back to the slides that you had? I had a question, just trying to understand some of that when we looked at those. If we could go back, some of those with the, if you don't mind, sir. Sorry, I should have given you a heads up that I was planning to ask you to go back, but I did have some questions on the slides. Can we go back to one of those dashboard screenshots or slides? That one. And then, Susie, you see how it said zone recommendations, check mark, no restrictions? Can you go back to a couple more? It seems like that's on each one.
It is. They don't talk to our aegis. Unfortunately, they don't pull the right data. So no matter what you do, it's going to say that. This is an internal only dashboard.
Okay.
So it's not a publicly facing dashboard.
Okay.
So we compile all of our information. If you look at the aegis one, which it'll take me a couple of minutes.
No, and I send that one out to folks all the time.
Yeah.
Okay. So that on there, because of, that green check mark is probably something we should not look at. We should look at the others. So, okay.
This dashboard is for our science.
Okay.
What are the plants doing? What are the fuel loads doing?
Okay.
Kind of stuff.
And I'm curious, I know you've gotten some of the same emails I have, certain folks from unincorporated parts of Larimer County, which especially in my district, near and outside the Estes Valley, have been asking during the summer tourist season if they could be exempted, their property or their folks exempted from the fire restrictions, so they can let guests experience our wonderful Larimer County. I'm assuming because they want to have campfires and things. I know the answer to this, but can we just explain to the public? Can you explain maybe why we can't be giving exemptions, why we need everyone to follow these? We know the answer, but I think I just need it to be said out loud publicly for folks to understand.
No, I totally appreciate that. There's a couple of reasons. One, exemptions are a slippery slope, right? If I say campground A can have an exemption, but then I say campground B cannot, well, tell me what the difference is, right? Why are they being allowed to have the exemption and we're not? Well, then it becomes, well, wait a minute. If the campground A and campground B are having it, why can't homeowner C have it and homeowner E have it? So it becomes a very, very slippery slope. This is kind of why we talk about, we try to do that differentiation amongst elevation zones because the weather patterns are vastly different between 5,900 feet where we are to 12,000 feet up at Cameron. But unfortunately, the whole county is dry currently. And especially when you're talking, you may have a campground of 100 sites, just to make up a number. How can you guarantee that every one of those 100 sites is doing what they need to do? I mean, as we know, right? I mean, you see all the commercials with Smokey Bear, right? Drown, stir, right? And then feel it. It's not necessarily the fire initially, it's what happens in the morning, well, after everybody's asleep, and the wind that comes up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and buried deep within that ash pile is a hot ember. And now the wind blows the ash pile away, the hot ember is exposed, it hits the grass with a spread component of 3, and next thing you know, you're off to the races. And so that's why we don't allow exemptions from the restrictions.
And just to build on that, even if they say, "Oh, we've done all this mitigation, we're doing our part," will be maybe that's great. We appreciate that. That's going to help overall, but that still would be that slippery slope.
Especially when we're seeing winds of 20, 25, 30 miles an hour, like we did earlier in the year.
Yeah, we had lots of red flag days. So a couple more questions. This is really our first year breaking these into zones and having this different analysis. And I appreciate you working with us on that and trying to, have these different zones to explain what's happening. And I think it helps folks understand why we need restrictions on, sometimes the whole county and et cetera. But do you feel this has been helpful with having these conversations in these zones and helping explain why and bringing, the science into it for the recommendations?
I do. I mean, it seems like all 3 zones have been in restrictions for all summer long, and that's not true. But there was a time when the above 9,000 feet, the East Divide zone was not in restriction. Unfortunately, we have been so dry, and while May we kind of held our breath and hoped June and July would continue the pattern of May, it didn't, and so the science has supported restrictions in all 3 of our zones currently, but there's been times in the last year and a half where that's not always been the case.
Yeah. Thank you. I just thought I feel the same way, that it's been great to have this discussion. If we can go to the slide where the fire, I think it's forward to the fire predictions or the fire risk outlook. I think one more. That one, yes. So when I see this map, especially the one for July, thinking back to Cameron Peak and East Rebelsum, and even what I saw over the weekend with the fire that started in Grand County that went into Eagle County, and we have that example that we know embers can fly over Continental Divide and ignite the east side. When I see that map, I think about all the folks around us that are in high restrictions and their conditions, and something could start in a neighboring county and come into our county. Same goes, right? I mean, we know natural disasters and fires, they don't care about boundary lines, they just go. And so I'm curious, I know the answer to this as well, but I wanted other folks to kind of take this into consideration. Also, we have to look, is part of your analysis also looking at the areas around us and their conditions that could, a fire could start in something really close, a close neighbor. And again, I really pray and hope that none of this comes to fruition. It's been I started looking on watching others at just the fires everywhere, the ones that we don't even hear about that are happening all over the state. There's lots of little fires everywhere. Is that part of the analysis to also think about the conditions around us that could ignite a fire that could blow into Larimer County?
So not to the degree you're probably thinking. So I have an email chain that I communicate with all of our fire managers, our fire department chiefs within Larimer County. So U.S. Forest Service, National Park Service, BLM are part of that because of the federal lands that are within Larimer County. Sheriff Curtis Johnson and his staff out of Boulder County, who's a great partner in that, are part of that email. And so but I don't include Grand County or Jackson County typically. Yes, we saw it with East Troublesome. That's such an anomaly that I don't necessarily look to see what Grand is doing or Jackson is doing. And the other part of that thought process is I'm already hitting their fire officer here, Aaron, with the National Forest Service, because if the National Forest Service, the Roosevelt Arapahoes and fire restrictions, it's going to be true for Grand or Jackson County as well. So whenever pretty much any one of us makes a change in what our fire restrictions are going to be, this email chain goes out so people are aware.
Fantastic. But it is something to consider. Would that be a fair assessment?
Well, yeah, because I look at what Forest Service does, and for a while we were in higher restrictions what the Forest Service was. So you couldn't have a campfire in a ring in a Larimer County campground, but you could in the Forest Service campgrounds up to Poudre Canyon for a while.
It didn't last long though, but that was,
No.
yeah.
And that's not true any longer. Anybody
No, it's-
watching out there.
Yeah, that's not true any longer. There's big yellow signs that should, and hopefully in the campgrounds. So I think that's all I had. I really appreciate the presentation today. It's been really, we asked a lot of these questions, not only for us, but for the public to kind of have these conversations. And I appreciate you coming today and all the work that you do behind the scenes. I'm sure this whole presentation is not just, it looks simple and forward, but I know there is a lot of work and analysis for that. And would you tell your team my gratitude and thanks as well. Lorena, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, I think the sheriff's presentation answered a lot of the questions we've been receiving through emails from residents, as it always does. And so I think a lot of people are watching today to see what the restrictions are. Of note, no one asked us to lift the restrictions. They asked you rather to extend them. And so it sounds like this is very consistent with what the community's been asking about.
Thank you, Lorenda. So, Sheriff, do you have any closing comments? Or
I do, actually. Thank
Yeah,
you for that
awesome.
opportunity. Since I have your ear and your
Yeah.
leadership, one of the things that it just you brought to mind when you asked a question about whose messaging board is that on Highway 34 by that dam store. It seems like we are in fire restrictions more often than not in the past couple of years. Yet Larimer County doesn't have any permanent signage that allows us to change that. So even like, and I think back to the ranch, and we can work with Road and Bridge because there's a cost and there's an expense to that. But this is not the answer, but in my mind, I go to like when we were working the ranch and we had outflow traffic, there were signs that were spring loaded. And so when traffic was ready to leave, you would pull the sign down that would say, go this way, right? And then when you had other events, you could retract the sign, and so people couldn't see that. Having something that's permanently mounted in different places in Larimer County where my deputies or Road and Bridge or somebody could simply go up there and unlock the sign, pull it down so it says fire restrictions are in place, instead of doing something off the fly and hoping somebody puts up a sign somewhere. I mean, if we want our visiting public to know, I think that might be something to talk about in the future, what that looks like.
I think that's an excellent point and suggestion. I look forward to that conversation because you're right. Things cost money and making sure that happens. But now I'm going to have to, I'm wondering whose sign that is. So we'll have to ask. All right. Well, thank you, Sheriff. Once again, it's just really a delight and pleasure and great respect for you and our partnership. So I appreciate it. Commissioner Cafals, would you please make that motion approving the resolution declaring the restrictions to be extended?
Yes, Madam Chair, I move to approve the resolution declaring restrictions on fires and combustible devices in Larimer County, effective from 12 a.m. on Wednesday, July 22nd, 2026, through 11:59 p.m. on Tuesday, September 8th, 2026.
Thank you for making that motion. Do you have any further discussion?
Just very quickly to further express our gratitude to Sheriff John Fayen and his team.
Okay. Thank you. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
That passes 2-0. Sheriff Fayen, thank you so much, and thank you to your deputies and team. We really appreciate all that you do. Now we're going to move on and become the Board of Equalization to review our Board of Equalization recommendations. I want to welcome Elizabeth Carter, the Recording Manager for the Clerk Recorder's Office. Good morning, Elizabeth. Thank you for being here. But first, should we go ahead and move into should I have Commissioner Cafals make a motion to convene as the Board of Equalization? Commissioner Cafals, would you make that motion, please?
Yes, I move to convene as the Board of Equalization.
Thank you. Any further discussion with that?
Nope.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're 2-0. We're in as a Board of Equalization. Elizabeth, would you like to start with your presentation? We have all these great information in our packet.
Certainly. So Elizabeth Carter with the Recording Department of the Clerk and Recorder's Office, and we are here to report on our first week of hearings for the Board of Equalization. And this includes the period of July 13th through July 15th. There were 327 total accounts that were considered, and these include accounts for real property, mobile homes, business personal property, oil and gas, severed mineral rights, and possessory interest accounts. There were 14 hearings that were conducted, and in those 14 hearings, 3 accounts were adjusted. One of those was a stipulated change, which of course is an agreement between the petitioner and the assessor's office that they mutually reached before the hearing. There were 324 accounts which were denied, and 317 of those accounts were administrative denials. To give you a little bit more context about that, so an administrative denial is a request that is made by the petitioner to go ahead and deny the account at the Board of Equalization level. We pass that request on to the referee. At the end of the day, it is the referee who makes the final recommendation. I will say typically the request for an administrative denial is granted by the referee. So a couple other things just to note, and then happy to answer, of course, any questions you might have, or at least try to answer any questions you might have. But on the second to last page of your sheet, we have a breakdown for you about the rate of change. One thing I should note is that all of the hearings held during this time period involved residential properties. So typically your single-family homes, things like that. We will start hearing petitions for commercial properties. Well, we started this week, and we will go next week and then into the first part of August. But the percentage of change for the hearings that took place from, again, July 13th through July 15th was 0.09%. So it was a relatively small percentage of change. I don't like to speculate, but my suspicion would be as the hearings continue, that rate of change may increase over time. Again, there were unusually large number of denials because of those requests for admin denials in this period. So we just wanted to make you aware of that, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. I appreciate all that you just said, especially talking about these were residential versus next there's commercial. That helped out a lot. Commissioner Cavalli, any questions?
At the moment, I have one question, and that is, can you explain why there were so many requests for administrative denials?
So this is a little bit of conjecture on my part. I mean, the agent could ask for it for any reason, but most of these were from a single agent who is representing multiple subdivisions, and they will appeal the entire subdivision, so every parcel. Typically, I believe these are subdivisions that are newer construction or being constructed, so they're still owned by the developer. They haven't necessarily sold to a property owner yet. And so the agent will appeal the entire subdivision, which was the case here. We had about 4 or 5 subdivisions that were appealed. And when they ask for that administrative denial, I believe that one thing for certain that it does for them is it preserves their right to appeal at the next level. So, once they receive a decision from the Board of Equalization, they then are able to appeal one more time to either the Board of Assessment and Appeals, go through binding arbitration, or appeal in district court.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
I didn't have any questions, so thank you. I mean, this is fairly straightforward, and maybe the question I have, I'm just for the public's knowledge, is this about standard for an off-year kind of amount of assessments? And I think you kind of answered, because it sounds like you said 4 or 5 subdivisions. That's a lot of properties. So I saw those were, some of them looked very similar. So so I'm just curious how this looks for your other years, previous or post.
No, that's a great point, and thank you for that. It is a non-valuation year, so the overall number of petitions that we receive the volume tends to be a lot less. But for comparison, in 2024, and this was over the total Board of Equalization cycle, we heard 473 accounts and had 97 hearings. So in just this 3-day period, we've already heard 327 accounts. So it's likely that our volume will be quite a bit higher than a typical non-valuation year, but nowhere compared to what it looks like during a valuation year.
But kind of higher than average for it's the commercial properties that's probably driving the volume for the next 3 weeks, you think is what's going to drive it above average? Is that what you're saying? I just want to make sure I'm understanding what you're saying.
So the commercial properties will probably increase, and we did see a significant increase in residential appeals compared to other non-valuation years.
Okay. Thank you. That's what I'm glad I had you re-speak that, because I think I missed a piece there. Thank you very much for that. So I believe that's all the questions I have. So Commissioner Paulus, would you make the motion to approve the recommendation submitted by the Board of Equalization?
Yes, I would be happy to. Excuse me. I move to approve the recommendations submitted by the Board of Equalization referees for the hearings held July 13th, 2026 through July 15th, 2026.
Thank you for that motion. All those in favor? Aye. That passes 2-0. Anything else you'd like to add for us, Elizabeth?
I think that's it for this period. We'll be back next week and then the following week. And hopefully, all of our decisions have to be affirmed by you by August 5th. So we'll make sure we meet that deadline.
Thank you so much. So Commissioner Kafalis, would you please make the motion to adjourn this meeting as Board of Equalization and reconvene us as the BOCC?
Yes, of course. I move to adjourn the meeting as the Board of Equalization and reconvene as the Board of County Commissioners.
Thank you so much. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Great, 2-0. And thank you so much, Elizabeth. You have a wonderful day.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you. Now we'll move on to our county manager update. Lorinda, I know you've been pretty busy the last week, so what would you like to share with us today?
I have been, thank you. I think I'll just highlight a couple of external meetings that I had last week. I met with Estes Park Town Manager Travis Michalik, and it's always a great partnership, lots to talk about with the town of Estes Park. NOCO Foundation President Kristen Todd and I also met last week. We meet on a quarterly basis to talk about ways we can support the community kind of in a neutral convening sort of way. You might recall they've taken on the Water Literate Leaders course, and now they've added a Housing Literate Leaders course that will kick off for the first time this year. And so that's a great role for them to play as a convening body. I also met with Treasurer and Public Trustee Irene Josie for our regular updates, and CSU Extension Front Range Regional Director Carrie Rollins. We have a lot we work on with Extension, especially as fair approaches, and so it's great to catch up with her as well. So I'll leave it at that for this week. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lorinda. And do you have any questions for Lorinda, Commissioner Kafalis? Great. Now we'll move on to Commissioner activity reports. Commissioner, would you like to share with us your activities from last week?
Thank you. I think I will share 3 activities. One is that on Saturday morning, we had our bi-monthly LaPorte community conversation. It was a good meeting. We, a variety of issues, spoke about the ChooseLarimer'sFuture.com, shared the flyers and had some discussion, asked for people's input, feedback, very important. Another big topic, there were about 5 people there who wanted to speak about concerns regarding the flock camera system. So we had a good meeting. The next thing I'd like to share is, and I alluded to this earlier, but we had our kickoff meeting on Friday, the House Bill 26-1429 implementation work group meeting. There are 17 of us that are on the work group, 3 commissioners, county commissioners. This body is responsible for helping to put together a report with recommendations, 17 deliverables by October 31st or so, that will help inform how we will make the transition regarding public benefits, delivery, and continuous quality improvement, and so on. So that was on Friday. Those meetings will happen every 2 weeks. The other meeting I would mention is on Thursday. I'm a member of what's called the Colorado System of Care Implementation Advisory Committee at the state level. And that has to do with a bill that was passed, I think, in 2024 regarding creating a system for high acuity, complex needs youth in the child welfare system or on Medicaid. So that is all. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I want to share a few things. Even though July is a little bit slower than the rest of the year, there's still a lot happening. I want to go back to the July 14th. I attended the Colorado Whole Blood Coalition Advisory Board meeting, and that was very interesting. Whole blood is a practice that is used with some of our emergency medical EMS partners, and we're just going to update how that looks across the state. It is used here with our Thompson Valley Emergency Services, and there has been some great outcomes from that, so really excited to be a part of that and listen to that. We had our Mountain Pine Beetle Working Group meetings where they brought all the different working groups from the task force, and I'm on the local government. There's several of them, but they all put us all at the same time now, so we all can't be on a couple of them. But that was a very productive meeting. That was on Zoom. And then we all went to the Castorina's Equine Center ribbon cutting celebration at the ranch. What an amazing, wonderful, community-focused, family led company, and it was just a delightful event. I want to congratulate OVG and Castorina's and commend the staff in OVG for just a wonderful, delightful event out at the ranch, and congratulations to all. It's a great partnership, and I think it really aligns with we have a lot of similar values and aligns. It was really a wonderful afternoon. I really am thrilled and want to thank Dwayne Penny and the Solid Waste Group. I had a wonderful transfer station tour out at our landfill properties. As everyone knows, I hope know that we're on track to, we had the ribbon cutting and opening the new landfill on August 3rd. Some amazing technology and innovation there, and part of that process and part of the connection to the old landfill, which will be closing probably in the next several months. But there was the transfer station, which folks who are from Fort Collins and Loveland in this part of the county will be taking and dumping their trash there, and then that will be transferred up to the landfill. And seeing that building and seeing the new vehicles and understanding the process and walking through, if I was bringing some solid waste to the landfill, which we have, I live in unincorporated parts, so that's where I take some bigger items. It was great to understand how that would work and how that kind of how that looks. I want to commend Dwayne Penny and his team for a job well done, and all the partners. What an amazing facility, lots of details and understanding, and then also just looking forward to how they're redoing parts of the landfill that will still be in operation for like woody biomass, mattress recycle, tire recycling, and how people are going to be able to do that. And the recycling center and the hazardous waste center, I want to just make sure everyone knows those amazing and outstanding programs will still be there and operating as usual and not be changing. So you can still, we have an amazing program with that in the batteries. And you can still do all of that at the landfill on Trilby. I just want to make a special note, and I had a discussion later in the day after my tour with Poudre Fire Authority's Chief Bergstrup about the dangers of lithium batteries in our landfills. And I really wanted to do a little public service announcement just to ask folks to please, we have a wonderful program. Matter of fact, our program has been held up in an exemplar that the EPA has actually adopted our messaging and our program for dealing with lithium batteries. But these are really hazardous and a hazard for how they start fires weekly, sometimes multiple times during the week in our landfill. And it is a risk for our staff and our firefighters because their exposure to those toxic chemicals is really something I worry about for exposure to that, and especially our first responders and our staff those are hot and dry conditions. And I just want to remind folks, we have a wonderful program. You can go online and learn about that and see how you can dispose of those lithium batteries. If you have any questions, I'm sure if you called our solid waste department, those numbers are online. They would be more than happy to help walk you through and help you understand how you can safely dispose of those so that we can keep our landfill and our first responders and staff safe and everyone safe, because this is a hazard. And I think they also sometimes do combust inside of the trash trucks and stuff too. We've seen that in the news. So I just wanted to bring that up to everyone's attention. Again, really important things. So then on Thursday, I had a ribbon cutting out at a conservation easement subdivision in Berthoud, and it's out in an unincorporated area, and they invited me to come speak because it was something that had been through our land use and how 50% of that new subdivision is going to be in a conservation easement, and it's along the little Thompson River, and it's near a riparian area, which was really important to me. But I also learned a lot that they've been working with the Historical Society of Berthoud, and I'm encouraging them to work with the Larimer Historical Society. Is a site of the Overland Trail came through there, and I had forgotten about that. My mom and my family, my extended family, used to farm in Berthoud, and so. That was really interesting to hear, and I think we have some great partnerships, and I appreciate being able to make some remarks there. That was it was a beautiful location on top of a hill with just the views of Longs Peak and Meeker in the Front Range were just stunning. And then I attended the 2026 Metro Region Hospital Collaboration Community Advisory Committee, where they're getting a lot of feedback about readmissions and things. And that was interesting because we had folks and doctors from Denver General and others, and it was definitely informative, but I believe I shared some important thoughts and ideas from my limited subject matter expertise on that for Larimer County, but it was an interesting discussion. Then I attended at the same time, we had our Visit Estes Park monthly Board of Directors meeting, which we held in kind of conjunction with the Chamber of Commerce, the Chamber of Estes Park. I did a very long presentation on Choose Larimer's Future. It was well received, had great participation. We had lots of handouts. There was the newspapers were there and some chamber members, and it was a great discussion. And we had lots of great questions, and people, with some of the trustees and the mayor, it was well received and they were very supportive of some of the things, and I believe we're going to have some more engagement with that. I think it was a great meeting. Then we had our NOCO Places stakeholder meeting, which was really exciting because it's featuring this new, I want to share with everyone, it's the weight of the tread, which is all of us hiking and making social trails, which is a passion area of mine, especially in Rocky Mountain National Park. The amount of social trails that's happening where people are not staying on the trail and creating new trails, it's really costing a lot of erosion and money and maintenance problems, and also getting folks off trail into areas that we were trying to protect for wildlife and birds. And it's quite an extensive problem and issue throughout not only Larimer County and Rocky Mountain National Park and our parks and spaces, but also along that NOCO Places region from the Wyoming border down past Jefferson County. I'm sure there's not a county or public steward, land steward group that wouldn't talk about the frustrations of social trails or people going off trail and creating all this erosion things. So that's really important. Larimer County is featured in some of these videos, and it's been some great videos and showing some amazing things we're trying to do here in Larimer County. I would recommend go to NOCO Places on the website and look at some of those videos and maybe help yourself understand how important this is. And they even talked about the Colorado Trail and the Continental Divide Trail, how this is changing things. So I'm hoping we all can be together, good stewards of our community and our natural resources, and how these are not just so you want to get closer to the river, but this does cause a lot of erosion and a lot of issues for wildlife and other things and trail maintenance that costs us all in the long run with money and resources, and kind of just really cause more fragmentations and issue with our spots. And then I've had some calls with Summit County and commissioners and others on the Friday, and that was really important conversations as we were talking about ballot measures that they were doing and others, and that was just a really good conversations with them and some other commissioners. I spoke with the sheriff and he mentioned before the Glen Haven Pancake Breakfast, annual breakfast. I've gone for over 10 years. This year was the 62nd annual pancake breakfast. I didn't know if you knew that, Sheriff. I'm just glad that it's older than me. So don't like going to things that are not as old as me anymore. It was, which is kind of weird, but it was great to see and understand, the things they're doing in the community and hearing about the mitigation thing that they do in a month. A lot is volunteer driven to help private property owners mitigate on their properties. And bringing the slash down to their slash pile, and they have a volunteer who comes and chips that, but they still need help. I mean, that's something we need to look at as a county. How do we move the biomass? How do we help these mitigation efforts? Because it is so important, because we're avoiding cost avoidance. Of every dollar invested, we're saving $7 in avoidance costs and loss of business and loss of landscapes if a fire should ever come through. And knowing it's costing that group every time they do that about $16,000 a month. I don't know where all that money's coming from, but it is pretty substantial to understand. That's not, even for that little community, that's a lot of money. But it was great. Smokey Bear was there. Got to sit in the fire chief's things. The pancakes were delicious. There were so many vendors there, and I saw Derek Rehnquist from Emergency Services there, Sheriff Fain, along with you and your lovely wife, and it was great to see everyone. And it's just such a delightful thing. It just warmed my heart, and the reason I wanted to say that is because it did warm my heart. This is really what community looks like when you bring together and have some fun, but it's also for a very important reason, to support that volunteer fire department. And I just want to give them Chief Ingram and former Chief Kevin Zergoda just a big kudos, because they're there greeting and talking with people the whole time, and it's just outstanding. And then just sharing a little bit tomorrow from yesterday, a couple of big meetings. I had actually lots of meetings yesterday. Talked with some CSU researchers on human services. I took the tour of the Avenues Recovery Center in Fort Collins, which is new to our community, but they're providing beds for long-term care for recovery for substance abuse or behavioral health and mental health issues, and they're doing very well. They're getting at least 70 beds, and they're working up to getting the full capacity, which is well over 100. Really great conversations. I appreciate them inviting me. I really loved the tour and had a great conversation. And then I met with the Forest Trends group for the U.S. Forest Service, and all of them talking about their messaging campaign to get people to understand how much it costs and what we need to have people the long term. Understanding how we need to actively manage our forests for wildfire risk and mitigation, protect our watersheds, and why this is a long-term efforts, and why it takes so much money, and we need to have money at the local level and be active partners, the state level and the federal level, and how we can help folks understand that even if you live in Fort Collins and you have a small business, why this is important to you, and why we need everyone, all hands on deck, to work on that. And they are very it was a great conversation. They really want to engage with us as Larimer County, and I just really appreciate their time. They got lots of research on how to deliver a clear message on this, and I think they're amazing. So it was a great meeting. So that's all I had to share. I wanted to share those things because it is relevant to our conversation about fire restrictions today. And I wanted to just thank you all for listening. We have no executive session or legal matters today, so that is the conclusion of our agenda. And so with no further items on our agenda, at 10:14 we are adjourned. Thank you for joining us. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful Taco Tuesday. Thank you.